Latino arts are alive and well in Rochester's vibrant community arts scene. With me today in the spotlight are Annette Ramos of the Rochester Latino Theater Company, Edie Rosenfeld and Amanda Alfaro of the Latinos de Corazon, a folkloric dance company here in Rochester. Welcome all. Thank you so much for coming in. So great to have you here.
Yes. Thank you.
So Annette, when people say Latino, what are they referring to?
Well, Latino refers to Latin American countries. There are two terms that are spoken of often, which is Hispanic and or Latino. Hispanic is usually Eurocentric from Spain. As a first-generation born Puerto Rican American, I refer to myself as Latina. And I would say probably millennials and Generation Xers also refer to themselves as that. Or even more specific, because I was born in New York, I am a Nueva Rican. So there is a combination.
Understood.
But in all, those two definitions really are an umbrella for many Spanish-speaking countries and Latin American countries. So there are 22, I think, 22 Spanish-speaking countries in the world, and we are all diverse and very different, but have a common thread of our cultural pride and identity, our values with family and hard work ethics. So there are many unifying connections that we have with all Spanish-speaking countries.
I see. And were you born in this country, Edie?
I was born in Panama. I was born in Panama. And true, you know, when I first came to the United States, I couldn't understand the concept of the separation of ethnicities. You know, you have to fill out a form and they say mark the above, Hispanics, Black Hispanic. So to me it was a culture shock, you know. So you go into that, so what am I? Am I Latino? Am I Hispanic? Because, you know, I say I was born in Latin America. So, yeah, and later I learned that when we say Hispanics, we are including the people from Portugal and the people from Spain and Brazil. So
A more general term.
more general terms, yes.
And Annette, you were born here, but you have experience living in Costa Rica, I think.
Correct. My husband's from Costa Rica, and even before we met, I just fell in love with Spanish culture in general. So I had some experience with some migrant workers, and that really exposed me to that culture and Spanish, and that became one of my passions. And so I've become involved with the Latino community, and I love everything about the culture and everything it represents. And even though I wasn't born somewhere else, or I don't have ties specifically for my family, with my husband being from another country, it really is important to us, and especially when we have children and raise our children to share that culture as well.
Wonderful. So we have represented here a theater company and a dance company, essentially, and part of the excitement of working together. But you all know each other and you work together frequently, is that right?
That's true.
Absolutely. We serve on multiple boards and organizations. Edie and I were just planning a huge event for the Memorial Art Gallery. We've been on that committee for quite a few years. I've actually gotten to perform with Latinos de Corazon this year, and that was very exciting because that took me out of director into artist once again. So that was a wonderful project. And then of course we support each other because we are really all on a common thread of really providing quality Latino arts and culture, not only that represents our Hispanic and Latino culture, but also that it opens the doors for non-Latinos to learn and to experience and to really embrace Latino culture and arts.
So does your theater company perform in Spanish mostly? Or?
We are a dual language theater company, so we speak both languages, and it's not necessarily a literal translation, but it's enough Spanish that the Latino community embraces it, and also enough English that the non-Spanish speaking community can understand it.
I see.
So all of our plays and productions are done in that dual language format. We will probably look at doing a full Spanish production in 2018. We have several, our season right now is filling up for 2017 with some very exciting projects. But part of of the mission of the organization was really around cultivating local Latino arts, as well as mentoring up-and-coming theater Latino artists, and then also educating the non-Latino community around themes that are relevant and poignant to the Latino community.
Understood. So, Edie, how large is the Latino community in Rochester and the surrounding area?
I believe we are about 50,000, and it's mostly Puerto Rican, and then we have a second group of Dominicans.
I see.
And Cubans. So you see more of, and I just recently I was looking at some of the other groups. We have other cultures. We have people from Colombia, Costa Rica, Mexico. So it's around 50,000, I believe.
Yeah. A good-sized city.
Yeah,
really.
a good-sized city. And so one of the things that is interesting is, like, you know, how do we present us as Latinos or Hispanics, and how we educate our community, and how we enrich the community, because that's one of the things that I learned that myself, like coming into the United States and actually moving into the Rochester area, because once in my life I lived in Washington, D.C., so I was around a lot of cultures. So isn't here, it's like, how do you preserve who you are and how you teach your children? And like Amanda said, you know, like for her planning in the future, she is married to someone from Costa Rica. And it's how do we teach our children and the community in general to accept and receive what other cultures bring to the melting pot.
I want to interject just a little and piggyback on Edie's comment. Rochester is actually the second largest city of Latino population in New York State, outside of New York City.
I think many people would be surprised to find
And that is shocking. And we are actually 68,000 Latinos registered in New York, in Rochester. So subsequently, it's actually very important for Latino culture to be woven into the fabric of arts and culture in Rochester, because we are the second largest city. And that really means that there's a responsibility of the Latino artists and the Latino community to keep pushing the agenda of Latino arts as part of the very important fabric of making Rochester a city of the arts.
All right. Now, theater is reliant on language, and she's from Panama. You've lived in Costa Rica and Puerto Rico, you know. So, is the language the same if a Hispanic speaker goes? Will they understand the dialect, and what Spanish are you using?
I'll let Edie answer.
Okay.
And also Amanda, it's interesting because when you speak Spanish, and they say Spanish, when my mother was a child, and actually my first few years of school, we call it Castellano in the school. And later they call it Spanish. So you come to the United States, it's Spanish. Then some people say it's a dialect. I say no, it's a language, because you have grammar. So, but then again, in Spanish, we use different meanings to things. And this is the part that is interesting in how we also educate people. When we tell, it might be bad in your country, but it's not bad in the other country. So you have to respect that, and you have to assimilate. Yes, there's things that is funny because you laugh about it because you're saying something and people are looking at you like, what did you just say? You know, but it's interesting. But yes, in general, yes, it's the same language, and yes, with education also you improve the language.
So it's not just pronunciation, it's connotation as well.
That's correct.
And then of course now you have Spanglish, which is the mixture of English and Spanish, and that's probably more of a Generation Xer, because many of our children are actually losing their language of their ancestors. And you know, part of it is that not that we want to be in the melting pot of America, but really the assimilation process is challenging. So just like Edie said, when the census came out several years ago, my daughter encountered in her very school, which is a private Catholic school, where girls did not understand that Puerto Ricans were born U.S. citizens. And that is really a sad and tragic state for U.S. history not to be taught, and what Latinos are contributing, and especially Puerto Ricans who are born U.S. citizens. So that is a very challenging identity for Latinos, whether we're born in the U.S. or have come to the U.S. How do we fit in, and how do we retain our cultural value, but also contribute to the value of American identity?
I think the society is pretty stratified too. I mean, there are people who you encountered as a youth who are here as migrant workers, but then a lot of professionals who came here highly educated from Puerto Rico, and they're excellent schools and medical schools, etc. So there are class differences even among the Hispanic community here, Latino community.
Absolutely, and a lot of people, and I know that we're talking about art, a lot of people actually go through depression because of that, feel, you know, separated from the culture. What they were giving once to their culture, they come here with a false idea that I'm going to be able to do this, and then they facing, you know, barriers. So that's one of the things that, as you know, with Latinos de Corazón, we try to embrace the cultures and bring people in to educate, and not only, you know, which is the dance and the art, but also finding themselves in how you give to your community to make you feel better.
And so do you welcome people of non-Latino origin?
Absolutely.
I hope so.
Absolutely.
The group actually started as a Panamanian group because Edie and her sister and a couple others had started the group as a Panamanian group. And what they discovered was they had other members that were not Panamanian. And so they wanted to expand that, as well as members that were not from a Latin American country or any descent like that. So they saw that as an opportunity and changed the name to Latinos de Corazón, which means Latinos at heart.
Latinos at heart.
I'm not Latina, but I can relate with Latinas, and I feel like I identify with them for some reason. That's part of me and what I can relate to. So our group encompasses members of all different backgrounds, whether they're Latino or not. And we'd like to just share that with as many people as possible and include people. And I don't know, we have several members that are not Latino, but they're proud of that culture and want to be part of it, and as well as sharing it with their families or the community.
So it's breaking down a cultural barrier there. Are there other barriers that you've run across in building your dance company that you're trying to break down?
Well, at one point it was there that some people thought it was all inclusive. It was all inclusive. So for people to start understanding. And the other thing that I want to mention is, like, we welcome, because we had done projects in the community, and you not necessarily are members, but you want to experience that. Because it's there, you know, getting to know what it is and losing that fear.
Yes.
Losing that fear.
A personal barrier, rather.
Yes.
I understand.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do you provide costumes for your dance? Are they folkloric costumes?
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because when we do our productions, because it's a production.
Yes,
it is a production. It's like, you know, we have to work hours. A dining room becomes a workshop. And you have everything in there. You don't move anything because you need. We recently in January we did a gala. It was called The Language of the Fan, and so we had to create every costume. We connected many cultures starting from the native from this country with the fan, and how these cultures all had it together, and then the Spaniard and the Afro-Caribbean, and so we did that. So we brought different cultures together. So it was that connection, and our dancers, actually, we have few that were actually non-Hispanics, and they were dancing.
And who trains them?
We do. We do the training. And my sister Laura, who's not here, Amanda.
Laura, okay.
So the choreography ourselves. So Laura is our choreographer for the most part, and she comes, you know, finds a song, finds a culture, and then puts together moves for it, and she's phenomenal. And she just does a great job. And so we work together, and she comes up with these ideas, and then she teaches them, and then we all work together to put in hours and hours of practice to put together these new dances, performances for our gala or for other community events, like at the Memorial Art Gallery.
I see, and so they learn through rehearsal.
Yes. And the interesting part is that, you know, growing up in Panama, I grew up dancing. That's all you do. You know, you're a child, you have to dance, you have to dance. You have to dance. But in there, the competition is bigger. You're going to compete. You're going to be on a stage. You have to be a dancer. And here, it's been different. We give the opportunity to people that never had that experience. You were never in dancing performance. You had that dream. I wanted to be once in the stage. So that's what we do. You know, we bring people that haven't had that experience also. And you know, and it empowers people when they are wearing a costume. It empowers them.
Yes.
And you know, the rhythms in the music must be very different from country to country depending on the culture.
Yes, they're very different. Yes. So just comparing Costa Rica and Panama, for example, so the typical Panamanian dance, depending on what it is, obviously, but it's very stiff and
formal,
and
like Castilian dance might be.
I guess so. And the Costa Rican is very bouncy and moving a lot and swinging your dress and all this stuff. So for me to go back and forth between the two, personally, it's been a huge challenge because it's very, very different. So they're like, you're bouncing too much, like calm down. But I'm like, no, I have this energy or whatever. So it's very different to learn the technique.
And so do people come to you with a dance background, or do you take them at all levels? Or?
At all levels.
At all levels.
At all levels. At all levels. And that's the fun part. And it's funny at the same time because you're trying. Because even us, we laugh about sometimes the things that we do. Like Amanda said, you know, you're doing. But it's molding, and it's like creating art. You know, you go from someone that does not know how to, female, mostly, how to hold the skirt. And then, so your arms, the posture, for example, some of the Panamanian dances, you might think that you go like this. No, it's like this. And the Costa Rican was like the arms are, so it's everything, posture, everything.
Stylistic,
and and even our choreographers are working and learning because some of the stuff we have never experienced ourselves, you know, like we had a dance for Nicaragua. We never ever did anything like that, like how do we do this? So it was like from your feet, from your head, from everything. So it's molding, it's creating art. You go from like, you know, like
just an idea.
Yes, an idea.
And you manage these productions?
Yes, I help coordinate the events. So if someone wanted to have us at an event, then they contact me.
I see.
I reach out to the group and find out who's available.
And how do they contact you?
They can contact us on Facebook, email. We have a phone number. We have a P.O. box. You can basically just find us online everywhere.
And what is your website?
latinosdecorazon.org. So they can find us on there and reach out to us. And we have a presence all over the community, whether it's at a church or a festival or a parade or any really organization we have our gala, we perform at other galas. So
wonderful.
It's very exciting.
That's wonderful. Now dance is very much a part of theater also.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And do you enjoy both sides of the equation, being on the creative side and the managerial side?
Absolutely. I started off really through my professional training in New York, and then later on moving to Los Angeles, and actually
theatrical training.
My theater training, and I actually did theater in LA. Yes, there is theater in LA, and I was actually one of the new members or the founding members of the first Latino theater company on the West Coast, which was Nosotros Theater Company. And that's where I discovered that we could have really a theater around themes and cultivating Latino artists. So in theater we have the saying that you have to be a triple threat. You must be able to sing, dance, and act. I cannot sing to save my life. But I discovered that I was very good at writing, and very good at directing, and then the necessary pitfalls of starting anything, as Edie knows, we wear many hats hats in these very small mom and mom organizations, from cleaning a bathroom to designing a flyer to distribution to calling the media. So
and to creating your own costume.
And creating the I too have had my living room and dining room transformed. So it's an exciting part. Rochester Latino Theater Company has done 2 musicals. We did in 2012, we did In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda's first hip-hop musical, and that was a very successful production. In fact, we extended it for 2 days. We could have easily extended it for another 2 weeks. That is when we really realized that Rochester's community was hungry for Latino theater. And it was a huge success, probably the largest success for the RAPA organization at that time. We then went on to do West Side Story. And opening night, we had 1,200 people in attendance.
Oh my goodness.
So again, we discovered, wow, we are hungry for that. And I must say, we are extremely excited because we're working with 2 other major theater communities for our 2017, which I cannot reveal yet, but it's going to be very exciting to bring back In the Heights, and then also looking at an original Jewish Latino musical. Jewish Latino.
That's interesting.
So we really look, one of the successes of our theater company is partnering. Partnering and collaboration, just like Edie's community does as well. And that's one of the things I love about our dance company, the inclusiveness of it. And we feel the same way. Our mission and vision is to collaborate and partner and bring in. So we're cultivating new talent, but we're also mentoring them with established professionals, theater professionals.
And do people come to you with theater training?
Absolutely. We just did a production called Separate is Never Equal. Don Bartolo was our theater director. He co-wrote the script with me. He's a longest established theater artist in Rochester. We've done multiple events and productions at Muck Theater.
That's the multi-use community cultural center,
And in fact, I'm proud to say we were birthed on their stage.
I like that picture.
And it truly was a breakthrough out of the Sankofa Festival, which is the African American festival. So you can see, when I tell people there are 47 regional theater companies in Rochester, no joke, there is.
That's amazing.
Some die and some are born and some die. So there's lots of regional theater. So anybody at any age or stage who's interested in that art form can look at Theater Rocks, which is the umbrella organization. There are, I think, 22 theater companies registered there.
And your own website is housed there.
Exactly, correct. So there are, and then Facebook, the social media component, there are several audition Facebook pages.
Understood.
And then, of course, the DNC does the Cultural Classics Connection, so they also promote local theater.
You're talking about the Democrat and Chronicle for people outside of Rochester.
Correct. Thank you for the extension of that. And so those are the resources that we have at our fingertips. And I will, I had a mom who called me and said, her 10-year-old daughter wanted to sing.
And you accept young artists?
I do. And it was wonderful. This young lady came and Adalisa, and she came and she sang a cappella a song at our youth festival last week. And we had spoken word artists and poets. We had Nana Rodriguez from her Edie's dance company come and perform. So you can see we really look at bringing them in, helping them develop some skills around performance, and then giving them the opportunity to showcase that art.
It's wonderful. Now, is there a large repertoire for Latino theater, or is it home-generated as
Very good question. There is a movement nationally that's coming out of Los Angeles, California. Latino theater is definitely a vibrant and thriving community, and even Broadway has taken on with Hamilton and its success, and Lin-Manuel Miranda really breaking that glass barrier for artists of color. I mean, when you watch a production, I think they were nominated for 12 Tonys and won 9 or 10, and the fact that he really broke that glass ceiling for artists of color to be what we call, blind color casting.
Ah, yes.
So instead of it always having to be, and that was why I started the theater company. I was tired of playing maids and sexy, vampy Latina women.
All right, typecast. Huh?
I wanted meaty, profound roles that not only represented my culture, but represented the women that I have been blessed to be mentored and nurtured and in company with. And so to be able to create that path, and there were others before me, so know that there have been other Latinas and Latinos in our community. I just had the determination to make it solid ground with which younger generations can now walk on that paved path within our community in Rochester.
Are you involved with the Rochester Central School District? Or,
Quite a lot. I do. I'm a teaching artist within the school district, so I have been that for almost 17 years. I do a tremendous amount of theater residency work. I'm also a master storyteller, and that's really where sort of I came through my theater. Since I couldn't sing, I thought storytelling might be a really good avenue. I could definitely dance, but so that was something. And even the city school district is looking at, because they're implementing this coming year, a Latino studies department. So they realized, as well as schools across the nation, that Latino history needs to be written into our curriculum.
Yes.
And true Latino history, meaning the real facts, not Cinco de Mayo celebrations, which are really Americanized versions of another fiesta and party. And that's why, you know, Hispanic Heritage Month is in the middle of September 15th through October 15th, because there were 6 or 7 Latin-speaking countries that won their independence during that cycle.
During that period.
So that's an important opportunity for us as artists in our community to be out in our community and educate. But we also want to be doing that year-round. We don't want to just be pigeonholed into a 4-week cycle. And I have noticed in Rochester over the last 5 years that that really has now begun to expand.
Understood, I understood. So how do people find your company and become involved?
Wonderful. We have a website, RochesterLatinoTheaterCompany.org. We also have a very active Facebook page, the same name. And then, of course, we are all over the internet, so there are lots of articles that are written about us. We're very user-friendly. We have a website, a Facebook page. We have an email address, Somos, S-O-M-O-S, R-L-T-C @gmail.com. And really, I think social media is probably our best avenue of outreach and engagement. And then, of course, we belong to Theater Rocks, so we're on their page as well.
That's good. Well, I will hope that many people find you there.
Thank you.
Annette Ramos from the Rochester Latino Theater Company has been my guest, and Edie Rosenfeld and Amanda Alfaro from Latinos de Corazon. Thank you so much for being with me here in the Spotlight. It's been wonderful to have you, and I hope you have a wonderful season ahead.
Thank you.
This is great, guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you all.